I will visually recognize a quorum. And good morning, everybody, and welcome to the joint Long Island Railroad and Metro North Committee meeting. A couple of things you may have noticed in your materials as per our request last time, and staff complied. We asked them to highlight some of the more important things, any important actions that we need to take higher up in the materials. So rather than scour on page 237, they're right up front, and we thank staff for doing that. Let's see. No other preliminary remarks other than it's been hot, and I'm going to hand it over to our counsel, Mark Hoffer, who will provide us with the safety briefing, and then start the public comment period. So, John?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Mark.
As to safety procedures, good morning, everyone. Your safety is our first priority. The following are the procedures to follow in the event of an emergency. If an alarm sounds, wait for a public address announcement and follow the instructions. If told to go to another floor or to evacuate the building, leave all unessential items behind and use stairwell exit A just across the main hallway, or stairwell E down the hall past the elevator lobby. Please notify emergency personnel if you need assistance. An automated external defibrillator, or AED, for use by trained personnel is located in the main hall just past the elevators. Mr. Chairman, we have 6 persons signed up to speak as public speakers this morning. I will remind all of our public speakers to please observe the 2-minute limit for their comments, and noting the clock up front and the fact that an audible alarm will sound and a light will blink when there's 30 seconds left. Our first 2 speakers this morning are Orrin Getz, followed by Jason Pinheiro.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Orrin Getz. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Metro North Rail Commuter Council. On July 17th, both Randy Glucksman and I attended the New Jersey Transit Board meeting. They had a big celebration about the 40th anniversary, but did not provide much other information. New Jersey Transit did not provide the status of their implementation of positive train flow, even though the New Jersey Transit Board provided additional amount of funds to Parsons for their implementation of the PTC. What's happened is they figured this amount in their executive session, but did not reveal that amount to us. We're now in the 3rd quarter of this year, and we still have not been provided a status of when the second midday express train and the weekend getaway train will be provided on the restored on the Pascack Valley line. Both Randy and I mentioned this to the New Jersey Transit Board, but did not get a response. We're asking that Metro North get involved and follow up on this item to get us a status on when those trains will be restored. The Pascack Valley line still has 14 miles of single-track operation that includes 10 station stops. This is a result of a lawsuit from 9 communities along the Pascack Valley line that stopped the construction of those sidings. We've asked, New Jersey Transit actually has a memorandum of understanding on that project. We've asked New Jersey Transit to go back to those 9 communities because their concerns have basically disappeared. We would like them to renegotiate the memorandum of understanding and see if these Pascack Valley line sidings can be built and the service on the Pascack Valley line improved. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jason Pinheiro.
Good morning. I want to start off first saying, first thing first, the Long Island Railroad has to improve communication with their riders, because as you guys know, Manhattan suffered a massive blackout 2 Saturdays ago, and no information was provided from the Long Island Railroad regarding providing cross-honoring between the railroad and the subway. The subway sent, New York City Transit sent a tweet. This tweet was never confirmed by the Long Island Railroad. It was a total chaos, and those in the island suffered the consequences. So, Phil, and we need more communication between the railroad and the riders. And as you guys see over here in the room, we have several riders that ride the Long Island Railroad every single day. They could describe to you their frustration, their nightmares, and we need to do better in providing service for those who live in Long Island and on the Metro North Territory as well. And I know that Kathy is doing her job, and Phil, I know you too. So that being said, today's bottom line is better communication between both entities and the commuters. So that's all I have to say for this month.
Thank you. Our next two speakers are Murray Bowden, followed by Rachel Foss.
Minutes of the regular Metro North Committee meeting, Monday, December 19th, 2011. Susan, you were there. Vinny, you were there. Other people were there too. Some you remember, some you don't. My comments, as this is the earliest report that is on your website. I've been doing this for 20-odd years. Since Virgil was here. My comments. Murray Bowden of Concerned Grandparents shared his views on the need for change. He asked President Permit to arrange for him to meet with Metro North staff to speak about a way to approach future projects. Exactly what I've been saying here lately. The new item is the MTA has changed. They are listening in a way that never happened before. I'm out of this now. It is your responsibility to see that the various subjects that I email you are implemented. You have the responsibility to see that we go forward. It's been a pleasure to be here. My time's over. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rachel Foss.
Good morning. My name is Rachel Foss. I'm the Senior Research Analyst for reInvent Albany. We advocate for more transparent and accountable authorities, including ones like the MTA. We are here to express concern about the lack of transparency and clarity about the board approval process and the all-in ongoing costs to the MTA for two Long Island Railroad expansion projects, the proposed Elmont Station and the LaGuardia Air Train link at Willets Point. Neither of these projects were part of the 2015 to 2019 MTA capital plan, and neither were they identified as long-term priorities for system expansion. Both projects are advancing because Governor Cuomo asked authorities other than the MTA to take their lead on implementation and prior state development and the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. While these projects are being managed by other authorities, they require MTA staff time and new ongoing annual Long Island Railroad operating expenditures. To date, the MTA Board has not voted to back or facilitate either of these projects. reInvent Albany has a number of questions which we believe should be answered to address public concern about the Belmont and Air Train projects. 1. When will the MTA release the study it conducted of the Belmont Station? It was expected to be completed in September of 2018, and has a similar study been conducted about the Air Train link? 2. What are the operating costs of the new Elmont Station? President Eng said in Governor Cuomo's July 8th release announcing the station there would be no capital cost to Long Island Railroad, but there will be new operating costs as the station will provide full-time year-round service. 3. What are the operating costs for expanded service for the Air Train? The Port Authority has said it wouldn't subsidize expanded service, only capital improvements. 4. Who will pay for any potential cost overruns? 5. What is the total cost of improvements the MTA has already made to the Belmont Spur, and what are the operating costs for this expanded service? 6. If the Elmont Station is proposed as an amendment to third track project, how will it meet environmental requirements like SECRA and NEPA? 7. How will the project fit into the already large third track project, which includes 50 activities and costs $2.6 billion? And 8, will MTA board members who have conflicts of interest recuse themselves on any vote? Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments.
Thank you. Our next speaker is John Michno.
Here we are, after a new Long Island Railroad president was named, and things are worse than ever for us on the Long Island Railroad main line. Every week, it's a signal problem, switch problem, or some other problem that results in delays, cancellations, and suspensions of service. And then there's the planned outages, like what we had this past weekend, where it was 100 degrees and you had no shuttle buses for people between Hicksville and Mineola. That's criminal. And honestly, there is no excuse not to provide shuttle buses. It's got to be against some kind of law or something. I don't know how you get away with it. It is not only your obligation, but a violation of our civil rights. And looking at the book for this committee, I see more work like this happening the rest of this year. Meanwhile, Long Beach stations get shuttle buses. All Long Beach stations get shuttle buses when I see work being done this fall. I'm no fool. I see exactly what's going on here. Communities on the main line are being discriminated against, while those on the South Shore and mainly white areas full of finance professionals get preferential treatment. Most of you don't represent us, but represent Wall Street, and are looking out for your own kind while screwing us. Week after week, there's only one line that seems to escape the problems, and that is the Babylon branch. And speaking of Babylon, which gets a full-time police patrol, while my town in Mineola, my station, is overrun with vagrants and beggars, and we don't get additional patrols. Yeah, and somebody asked me for $1 this morning there, all right? Every morning it's like this. You have an obligation to keep us safe, not all communities with certain demographics just connected to Wall Street. And while I totally understand disruptions are needed to fix the main line's problems, you need to provide proper alternative transportation, which should not be a problem for you at the MTA with hundreds of buses that sit idle on the weekends. I have had a mental disability my entire life and cannot drive. I have seen my bus service ruined and my train service become worse as well. If this is your corrupt way of trying to force us out, I will see to it that you will not get away with this. Shame on you for how you treat people.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Matt Camper.
Good morning, MTA Board, LIRR, Metro North Committee, and of course, President Phil Ang. My name is Matt Camper, and I'm a fellow LIRR rider and, of course, advocate for the MTA. I'm here this morning to address with you all about the over year-long, last 10 times in the last year of slow-speed LIRR derailments, whether it's on the main line, whether it's been at Jamaica, whether it's been on the Port Washington branch. There was even one instance in the Babylon yard that it happened in. And us, the LIRR riders, are really getting sick and tired of having to hear about this. And it's just that we do not get any explanation as to why it happened in the first place, and especially how it is being prevented. And I am urging President Phil Ang to please come back to us, the board members, and the public in general, and make sure that we understand what exactly has been going on with this issue to make sure that these issues do not keep on happening in the future. Obviously, Metro North had major derailments several years ago, 3 in a matter of, a year and a half or 2 years. And Metro North, for example, has had these issues fixed and is a reliable service. I want to see the same thing happen with the LIRR, no matter what branch you are on, and I am making sure that all my fellow riders understand exactly what has been going on and how to make sure these issues do not keep on continuing, because I'm afraid that one day there could be a serious derailment, and then that's when something is going to be done. And I don't want that to happen. I want to make sure that everybody is safe and doesn't have to worry about, oh, we're going to be on a train that could potentially derail at any moment. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, that concludes our public speakers for today's meeting.
Thank you, Mark. It's a tough system to run every day. I took the 634 to St. James this morning, transferred at Jamaica, got to Brooklyn, then took the number 4. and everything was smooth and on time, and you never get thanked when things do go on time, so I thank the men and women who got me here safely today. We're going to go right to the minutes of the last meeting for both the Long Island Railroad and the Metro North. Motion by Susan, seconded by Neil. Any comments, revisions, additions? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion's carried. Phil, I'll hand it over to you for the Long Island Railroad report.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I'd like to start actually by acknowledging Mark Hoffer, Long Island Railroad's Chief Counsel. And it's with sadness in my heart that I announce that this is Mark's last board meeting, but also happiness that Mark has now taken on another chapter of his life. He has served Long Island Railroad twice, I believe. He's worked at the Port Authority as well. He has had a long and remarkable career, and I have leaned on him from day one, and he has kept me out of trouble, kept me with his sage advice in terms of being able to progress work at Long Island Railroad, progress many initiatives, and you know, it is my pleasure just to be able to acknowledge him here at the board meeting. And I just want to ask everyone to give him a quick round of applause and thank him for his services.
Thank you. Phil, any changes to the work plan?
No changes to Long Island Railroad's work plan.
Kathy, any changes to the Metro North work plan?
No changes.
All right, Phil, I'll hand it over to you for your agency report.
Okay. I also have the pleasure of congratulating our safety department and MTA Police for winning this year's Gold Award for Rail Safety and Security from the American Public Transportation Association, APTA. It is their top safety honor for a public transit system and given the programs that best serve as a model of excellence for the rest of the industry. It was given to our right-of-way task force, which was created in 2002, and it assesses the conditions along the right-of-way through our daily transportation log, addresses flag trespass reports, debris strikes, other operational issues. These reports are critical to our decision-making and process in providing safe service for riders and keeping communities educated about our system. Over the years, the task force has identified critical locations for high-security fencing and continues to expand and update our public education campaign as our system grows and develops. Keeping our system and our right-of-way safe and secure will always be our core value for us, for our workforce, for the public we serve. I want to thank Laurie Ebenhausen, our Vice President of Corporate Safety. I want to thank Chief Owen Monahan and Chief Joseph Martelli for the MTA Police for their leadership. And I'd like to invite John Capiello, Subin Anthony, and Carl Meyer from our Safety Department for continuing, invite them up and thank them for continuing to make this a successful and meaningful partnership. It's easy to create a task force, but to sustain it over a decade long and show real progress is a fantastic achievement. Thank you for allowing us to have that moment to celebrate that. So we're at a pivotal time at Long Island Railroad. This summer we continue with an unprecedented modernization and aggressive state of good repair program. Urban Avenue grade crossing, located on the main line in Westbury, I'm proud to say was successfully eliminated this weekend on schedule. It's the first of 7 grade crossings to be eliminated as part of the third track mainline expansion project. And this newly configured area, and I believe Jana will talk about it a little bit more, will improve train service reliability and vehicular traffic flow as well, as we installed a new bridge where there wasn't one before, This new bridge has 3 tracks. Will accommodate the 3rd track through the expansion project. Vehicular traffic, instead of going across the grade crossing, will traverse now underneath the bridge. And eliminating the grade crossing will improve safety, eliminating the possibility of drivers going around down gates, hitting our gates. And just as important, this work does improve the quality of life for the residents, with improved air quality and elimination of train horns. An outstanding team effort under extreme heat conditions this weekend by the railroad workforce and the contractor 3TC. And I'm proud of the partnership we have with MTA Capital Construction. This also follows last month's Cherry Lane Bridge replacement, again adding capacity for a 3rd track and elevating bridge clearance to avoid crippling bridge strikes. And as we continue with our critical infrastructure improvements, I'd like to also just acknowledge all the switch upgrades that we continue to do. 4 located out of busy Harold interlocking. In June alone, we accelerated surfacing, welding, concrete tie replacements, and drainage work across all 11 branches. In Penn Station, Amtrak has resumed the state of good repair work that has been deferred for too long. And while it's challenging for our operations, it is essential for reliability and safety for years to come. We're rebuilding the railroad for today and for the future generations. Accomplishing this work means balancing the service needs of today's ridership and providing track outages that support the work. We know that this means sometimes reducing our operational flexibility, but delaying this work is not an option. And this is why communication is important, and we are working with that to improve that. On the train, it's not obvious when traveling through a work zone, and why we're working hard to message more proactively and allowing folks to know when to take provide themselves additional travel time. With all this unprecedented work, our on-time performance for June was 91.4%, and for the year through the end of June, I'm proud to say 93.51%, 3 percentage points better than last year to date. And with all this going on, I want to remind our riders to use our train finding tool, mylirr.org, or sign up for our text and email alerts for real-time information. The best way for getting customized alerts for your travel. MyLIRR.org can easily be accessed also through a direct link we added on the Train Time app as we continuously seek to improve communications, making the MyLIR the real-time site information to go to. Our station experience is also critical for our customers. Following up on our Adopt a Station program, I'm pleased to announce last week we installed a new technology desk at Jamaica, giving customers the ability to stay plugged in while they wait for their trains. I want to thank our sponsor, CBRE, for their investment in our system, and our station department and workforce for getting this done. And building upon the success of LIRR Care, striving to better address the needs of all our customers, I'm proud to announce that the railroad will be installing an ADA-accessible mother's lactation pod at Penn Station. This will be the first of its kind for MTA customers, and we know this will better assist mothers on the go when traveling to and from the city. As we get feedback from our customers and station personnel, we will look for opportunities to expand this to other terminals across the railroad. And finally, just to update regarding our M9 rail car procurement, I'm pleased to report continued positive progress. We've not seen any new issues to date being encountered. Kawasaki and their subs have identified fixes for the remaining few items, and all of those are being implemented as we speak. Testing continues, as I mentioned, and again, no new issues have arisen. I'm proud of the many accomplishments that our employees continue to deliver on and all the great strides we've made to date, but it's important to state that we have a lot more to do. As you can see, we're continuing our aggressive modernization program. In the month of August alone, we will have 11 construction work zones across 5 branches. This includes upcoming South Tyson Bridge replacement, located along our highly trafficked main line in Floral Park, and Covert Avenue grade crossing elimination in New Hyde Park. I'm confident that we're making the right decisions as we continue to support and perform all this critical work. It is the right decision to get this work done now, without deferring and working hard to do this while still providing 24/7 service to a robust ridership, even with reduced infrastructure. We have a lot of important work ongoing, with more to come. We're going to continue to modernize and improve the system. I want to thank all our riders for their patience and understanding, and I want them to know that Railroad's future is looking bright. I absolutely need to mention our staff and our workforce for their commitment in this modernization as we work towards delivering a world-class railroad that our customers deserve. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Phil. Any questions for Phil? Hearing none. Lori, the safety report.
Good morning. We're reporting on our safety performance through the end of May 2019, and you can find that report on page 41 in your book. Our customer injury rate continues to decrease. It decreased 27% from 2.46 injuries per million customers to 1.79 injuries per million customers. We're also seeing benefits in our reportable employee lost time injury rate, 21% decrease over the same period last year. We decreased from 3.52 injuries per 200,000 hours worked to 2.78 injuries per 200,000 hours worked. And our other successful collaboration with MTA Police, the TRACS program, reached over 43,000 participants through the end of May. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Lori? No? Thank you very much, Lori. Kathy, the Metro North report, please.
Thank you. Actually, before I start my report, I also want to congratulate Mark Hoffer on his retirement. After Mark's first stint as general counsel, I actually replaced him as Long Island Railroad general counsel. So we share that general counsel bond. So I can't thank him enough for his work for the railroad and wish you nothing but the best to you and your family. Now on to the Metro North report. There will be a report later on in the agenda, a joint information item on PTC, but I do want to acknowledge to the committee that Metro North has reached another milestone on PTC implementation. FRA recently authorized Metro North to extend revenue service demonstration to the Danbury branch, and we anticipate beginning what they call ERSD within the next couple of weeks. While we're on the topic of rail safety, I'm pleased to announce that Metro North was awarded an Operation Lifesaver grant to support TRACS, our free community outreach program, which covers grade crossing safety, rider safety, trespassing, and suicide prevention. This grant will be used to support two separate initiatives to help amplify our TRACS outreach program. First, a rail safety passport book that will be distributed to students, children, and families during school presentations and community events. And second, we're going to be wrapping the vehicle that we use for TRACS outreach to help increase awareness of our TRACS program and to remind motorists who pass by the wrapped vehicle to be safe at railroad grade crossings. Just a couple words about service delivery. Our June east of Hudson service delivery operated above goal at 94.4%. Year-to-date OTP remains strong at 95.2%, which outpaces last year's performance at this time. West of Hudson service, however, operated below goal, due primarily to the impacts of infrastructure work as well as equipment and switch and signal failures on the Port Jervis line. Next, I would like to take a few minutes to recognize the really extraordinary efforts of our employees who supported CDOT's replacement of railroad bridges that were built in 1896 at Atlantic Street in Stamford. Glenn likes to talk about the president who was in office when a particular bridge was built. This was a Grover Cleveland bridge. This project was planned jointly with CDOT for several years, and we're going to show a time-lapse video of the incredible amount of work that was done over the course of 9 days. Do we have that? Maybe we're not. There it is. Oh, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to talk while the video goes. While work was underway, there were only 2 of 5 mainline tracks available for train service. As a result, we provided a reduced New Haven line schedule, and buses replaced trains on the New Canaan branch over the 9-day period between June 29th and July 7th. Recognizing the significance of this project to replace the bridges while still providing train service on only 2 mainline tracks, there was a lot of planning and coordination with CDOT, and the work was deliberately scheduled to coincide with the July 4th holiday week when we typically see a reduction in weekday ridership. The construction stage was the most significant and involved close coordination and hard work among many Metro North departments. From initial planning to developing the complex train schedule, communicating it to our customers, and then making sure our customers and employees were safe during the 9 days of bridge replacement work. The work itself involved constructing the abutments and supports for the installation of 3 new spans and then rolling and setting each span into position. First, there was the 2 new sections of the span that carries track 2 and 4, which was completed on June 30th. Then tracks 1 and 3, which occurred on July 4th. And then the next day, 2 sections of the spans for tracks 5 and 7. With each span, new track and signals were installed, and the new track bed was prepared and all was tested. The project also included lowering the roadway approximately 3 feet to avoid bridge strikes, which impact train service. Even though it was a holiday weekend, many Metro North employees turned out in force to support CDOT's contractor. You may recall it was a brutally hot and humid weekend, not quite as bad as this past weekend, but still pretty bad. But day and night, there were thunderstorms, sun, humidity, and the forces were there to make sure that the job got done right, and I want to thank them for that. Results like this don't come about by luck or magic. They come about through professionalism, teamwork, and dedication. Metro North employees take pride in their work, and they do it well. These efforts were largely invisible to our customers, most of whom had no idea how much work was involved in supporting a massive project like this one. We appreciated our customers' patience while we operated a reduced schedule to accommodate this work. And on my customers' behalf and for myself, I want to thank all my employees for everything that they did to ensure this project was successful. I am proud of all of them and grateful for their commitment to the railroad. While we're speaking of bridges, I'm happy to report that earlier this month we opened the new 14th Street Bridge over the New Haven line in Mount Vernon. Some of you will recall that the mayor of Mount Vernon appeared a couple months ago to talk about the progress of the bridge work there. So 14th Avenue is open, and replacement of the next two bridges in Mount Vernon, 6th Avenue and 10th Avenue, continue to progress. The contractor is preparing those two bridges now for demolition in the fall, including extensive relocation of utilities, removing the asphalt roadway, while keeping the bridges open to pedestrian traffic. A couple words about some station improvements. Let's talk about west of Hudson first. At Nanuet, the next phase of improvements has been completed with repainting of the station platform canopy and tactile warning strips, as well as new LED lighting. The new passenger shelter is scheduled for replacement next year. Also west of Hudson, we will start upgrading the parking facility at Middletown Station this week, and we plan to complete that rehabilitation work by September. On our enhanced stations projects, at Crestwood, new customer amenities and the pedestrian overpass are moving ahead with the new wood ceiling, and the station's main entrance is under construction with a new ADA ramp and stairs. We plan to complete these station improvements later in October. In addition to the station building and platform improvements that we completed earlier this year at Harlem 125th Street, the two south staircases have now been fully reconstructed, and there is new artwork that graces the glass panels on the platform areas. Finally, at White Plains, we continue to make good progress at that station as we approach the halfway point on construction. With the northern section of the island platform complete, we have now turned our attention to the middle section of the platform. The new ticket office, tenant space, and expanded waiting room are all under construction. After Labor Day, renovations will begin to the elevator servicing the island platform at White Plains. We have been developing a plan to provide customers with access to North White Plains Station where there is an elevator, and we are working with advocates for the disabled in both the city and the county to finalize this plan, which includes an accessible shuttle service between the two stations. Once this plan is finalized, a comprehensive communication effort will follow. Finally, we're making good progress on some of the upgrades at Grand Central Terminal. We continue to introduce new real-time digital train information displays, and we are rolling out 96 new digital signs at each of our departure gates on both the upper and lower levels of GCT and GCT North now through February. Next, I want to update you on another Way Ahead initiative, which is doing more to improve cleanliness along the right-of-way. Recently, we teamed up with New York City Sanitation and the NYPD on another successful cleanup, this one south of Melrose Station. Over the course of 2 days, we collected 3.6 tons of garbage adjacent to our tracks. So you can see what that looks like. We thank these agencies for their partnership as we continue to strive to be a good neighbor to the communities that we serve and improve our customers' day-to-day experience. To prevent future illegal dumping at this location, Metro North is installing chain link fencing along the slope, and NYC DOT is improving the fencing along Park Avenue. I'd like to thank staff in our Maintenance of Way, Environmental Compliance, Service, and Corporate and Public Affairs departments, and our partners in the city for working together on this important cleanup initiative. Finally, I would like to recognize one of our retirees, Mary Maselli, who will be leaving Metro North at the end of July. Mary has been part of the MTA family since 1994, so almost 25 years, and she can attest to how much MTA has changed since then, because when she first started, she was the only female junior engineer in the Long Island Railroad's Capital Department. Today, we have about 36 engineering women at Metro North alone, and it's in part thanks to Mary that we are continuing to grow our ranks of female engineers. Mary started WE, Women Engineers, to boost the attraction and hiring of female engineers here, and through this group they have collectively worked through several issues important to women in the workplace, such as how young mothers can handle work and home, as well as tuition assistance programs. As Assistant Vice President, Mary is the highest-ranking woman in the Capital Group, and over her career she has worked on such significant projects as managing the construction of the Yankees East 153rd Street Station, the Yonkers Station restoration, and the rebuilding of 9 Hudson Line stations from Morris Heights to Greystone. Mary is our resident expert on design build. She was doing design build before design build was cool. Currently, she is managing the $365 million Harmon Yard rebuild, and I guarantee you that because of that project, she won't be taking any time off between now and her official last day on July 30th. I'd like to extend my gratitude to Mary for her excellent work over these years and for taking on the extra task of trying to attract and retain more female engineers to work at Metro North. Please join me in congratulating Mary for a job well done and wishing her great success in her next adventure.
I just want to say that thanks to some of the programs that Mary started, women are able to work for Metro North, and it's that kind of program that helps us achieve our diversity goals. So special thanks.
Thank you. And Mary was one of the stars of the video that was shown at Diversity last month, so I'm happy to introduce her to a larger audience.
Any questions for Kathy? Hearing none. Justin, will you give the safety report?
Yes, sir. Good morning. Justin Vanishek, Vice President, System Safety in Metro North. The safety report can be found on page 45. Customer injuries continue to trend less than 1 injury per million customers and are down over 15.5% versus the previous 12 months. Employee lost time injuries are down 20% over the previous 12 months, and our community outreach program TRACS has reached 17,000 individuals in May, bringing the total through May to over 47,000. That concludes the report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Justin? Hearing none. Jano, capital construction report, please.
So Phil has mentioned the work at Urban Avenue this weekend, which was extraordinary, and I just want to start out by acknowledging under the heat conditions that existed, it was amazing. The contractor got the work done 3 hours early, and we were able to restore service as planned, notwithstanding the conditions. There was also I think a first-class heat management plan where we had all the facilities, cooling facilities, additional water, medical personnel, make sure that the workforce was protected from the conditions of the heat. So the reason I want to just give a little more detail than Phil did on third track, and I'll be talking at CPOC, is that we continue to use this project, I think, to model what we are increasingly viewing as the right approach to project management. Third track is, I think, some of the board members who are new to this have been briefed, but it's a 10-mile right-of-way. It's got 7 grade crossings that we're eliminating. We're adding 7 bridges, 6 stations, and a ton of parking garages and other ancillary materials, and sound walls and retaining walls up and down the right-of-way, all in support of adding a third track so that we can run more service, which together with East Side Access is going to allow for a 40% expansion of peak hour capacity in the railroad. So this is a really important project for everything that we do. What's also important about it is that this project is operating on budget, and there have been some puts and takes and a few change orders and a borrowing from contingency in order to accelerate some of the grade crossing eliminations that have such an important safety impact. But right now, this project is under budget, given notwithstanding all the small change orders and moving around. So we're proud of that. We want to use that as a model of where we are. There is work going on up and down the right-of-way. Part of what's important about this project is the principle that we're going to bring to the next capital program of where we have outages. We're going to figure out a way to piggyback everything we possibly can to get the most out of an outage, and that was very much in evidence this weekend. This is a very quick video of the excavation that was going on at Urban Avenue. You can see how before the new bridge was installed, the contractor excavated right up to create the basis for the undergrade crossing, and then once we got the outage, took the track out, took the signals and so on out, and began excavating the remaining work. And ultimately you see that structure alongside. That was a push. I'm just going to advance it. What was done is this has never been done before in this country, which is a jacking approach that allows you in effect to insert a prefabricated bridge and undergrade crossing structure, moving it very, very slowly into place. But you would not, by some estimates, have been able to do this in a weekend otherwise. So this is a part of the innovation that we're bringing to this project. Apropos of piggybacking, we at Maryland Avenue Station, we continued to work to maintain the temporary platform approach so that we can run service even as all the work in gradually, sequentially demolishing the platforms is being done. And that was a contractor innovation. That's a benefit of design build, where the contractor had originally been offered the chance to completely suspend service at that station, figure out how to maintain it. And likewise at Carl Place, we removed a pedestrian overpass. Again, every station up and down the line taking full advantage. That's Cherry Lane, which was a bridge insertion, not unlike the one that Kathy showed on the New Haven line, that was done a couple of weeks ago. And was our first outing in one of these major weekend efforts. We added the bridge. That was the installation of the new bridge, slowly being moved into place with that vehicle that's carrying it, and it fit, and off we went, attaching it to the abutments and so on. Covert is coming up soon in a couple of weeks. That's been in process for some time. That's I think the next bridge that we're doing, and I'll talk about it at CPOC, but we are managing every element of this, I think, much more aggressively than a lot of other big capital projects. The submittals are on time. We are paying the contractor early. The turnarounds of all the work that is necessary to keep the design build process going are, in fact, ahead of schedule, ahead of contract commitments. And to the railroad's credit, they've also been ahead of commitments in terms of their providing flaggers to the site, which enables all that extra work to go on. So I think we're going to talk about it more at CPOC, but this continues to trend as the model project. And I just want to end again by thanking the workforce and the contractors, both the railroad and the contractor workforce, for really knocking out some really complicated, heavy-duty work on an incredibly challenging weekend.
Great news, Jana. Thank you. Any questions for Jana? Neil.
Congratulations as well. I don't know if this is for Jano or for Phil and Kathy, but without throwing too much cold water on, how many grade crossings do we still have remaining for Long Island Railroad and separately for Metro North?
I think we have 295 now that we've eliminated one. But these 7 along the main line are critical in terms of so many of our ridership goes through this corridor. That's not to say the other ones are not important as well, but certainly these 7 are going to be huge for our ridership, for safety, and for those communities that go through. Because of the volumes of trains, those gates are down more than half an hour every morning, peak hour. So when you think about it, that's one of the reasons you have so many gate issues. Cars are trying to beat the gates or trying to, and that in fact causes delays, safety issues. But these are, in addition to the bridges that are being replaced under this contract, this 10 miles is going to have a ripple effect in terms of improving service.
We have 103 at Metro North.
Hearing no other questions, thank you, Jano. Let's see, who are we going to next? We're Chief Monahan for the Public Safety Report.
2018 was our lowest crime year since the formation of the MTA Police Department in 1999. And despite that, we continued the downward trend. Although the month of June we did end up slightly, we were up about 3 crimes for the Long Island Railroad, and we were up slightly also for Metro North Railroad. The main problem with Long Island Railroad continues to be the grand larcenies. In this particular instance, there were 5 grand larcenies. 3 of them were wallets people had left on the train. In one particular instance, the individual was happy to see that a responsible person actually picked up his wallet as the train doors closed. He was hopeful of getting it back, or at least hearing from the person, but he heard from his credit card company first, asking if he was making some suspicious purchases. The other 2 happened to be a cell phone that was left behind and some tools that were taken out of a Long Island Railroad work truck. We are concerned whenever there is an assault on any of the persons working or riding on our railroad system, particularly if it's a fellow employee. For the Long Island Railroad, there was a female conductor who was assaulted by a passenger who was in a car where he wasn't supposed to be. There was an arrest made by patrol. The female conductor suffered minor injuries and is back to work. As far as Metro North Railroad goes, there was also a conductor assaulted in a fare dispute, again causing minor injuries, and an arrest was made of the female who assaulted the conductor. Grand larcenies for Metro North Railroad run the gamut, of course, of the unattended bags, the wallets that are left, or credit cards that are used by people that have left property behind on the train. But overall, the police continue to do an excellent job in keeping crime down and suppressing any type of unwanted activity. We have started our fare evasion task force, and it is now operating on buses and subways. I don't have any specific statistics to give at this point, except to say that the ridership is happy to see us, the bus drivers are happy to see us out there, and we've received a lot of compliments along those lines.
Thank you, Chief. Last week, I think it was, Governor Cuomo put out a release regarding the reorg plan and making sure that the MTA addresses the homeless problem within that plan. And I know most people think it's just a transit system issue, but it's very much a suburban rail issue as well. I want to make sure that staff, we address the issues. And Chief, upon request from a state senator and Babylon Village mayor, they brought me out to Babylon Village train station, where they do have a homeless problem, nasty or aggressive panhandling, just like one of the gentlemen who was a public speaker mentioned before at Mineola. And I was just hoping you could brief us on how we're trying to coordinate with local PD or DSS to address the homeless issue in our suburban rail stations as well. Thank you.
Well, Babylon in particular has been a recurring issue for us, but I'm happy to report that we've had some success out there. The overall crime is down significantly. Last year we had 26 incidents. This year, for the first 6 months, we only have 2. In addition, we've been working with the local authorities out there, and I believe there was a meeting last week with one of the local politicians.
Yes, if I could just add on to what Chief McGran said. Long Island Railroad has been meeting with the local electeds. We've had several to date, and we continue to do that to keep them updated with the steps that we're taking. And it's been in support of the MTA PD establishing Babylon as an example, as a fixed post where officers report to that location and then move out into the system. But that creates a greater presence at the station. Long Island Railroad has been working as well in terms of improving the security at the station as well. We've ordered cameras, which will be installed at ground level. We've also talked with the local electeds with regards to rearranging the furniture that is outside of the station as to minimize the likelihood of gatherings, as well as then also installing a help point, which will be done at the ground level, as well as which we already have on stations. And then the last part is to We've reviewed the lighting. We know that lighting is adequate at night, but we'll keep an eye on that. And we've also adjusted our own workforce schedules to have a greater presence during certain times that the local electeds have asked us to demonstrate. And so our station folks, our cleaning folks have changed their schedules to, again, create a greater presence of workforce and employees, deterring those kinds of situations. And we're going to continue to monitor, work with MTA PD, not just at Babylon, but other stations as well.
Great, thank you, Phil. Kathy, is that much of an issue in the Metro North system?
It is. I mean, it's an issue that we've been focused on for the past couple of years. I would say about a year and a half ago now, we entered into a contract with an outreach provider for our outlying stations. We had prior to that point been more focused on GCT and 125th Street. So their outreach efforts extend throughout the territory with particular attention to Yonkers, Mount Vernon East, Stamford, Bridgeport, some of the larger urban stations where they continue to make contacts with the regulars there and try to get them into treatment. It's obviously a complex issue, but we're doing the best we can in conjunction with the PD and our outreach provider to try to get the people the assistance that they need.
Great, thank you, Kathy. Any questions for Phil, Kathy, or the chief? Hearing none, Chief, thank you very much. We'll move on to some action items. Metro North, I believe, has 2 action items. Kathy?
Actually, I think we only have one. It's the board approval for Metro North to enter into the 5th memorandum of understanding with the city of Newburgh for reimbursement for lease payments associated with the parking and ferry landing facilities for the Newburgh Beacon Ferry. This is something that we brought to the board before. Essentially, we get reimbursed for this reimbursement out of CMAQ funds, which we get from the State Department of Transportation, so it's revenue neutral.
Right. Take a motion by Robert, seconded by Susan. Any questions, comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Susan, you're right. It's Kathy, you're correct. It's MTA construction action item. I'm going to recuse myself. It involves Marsh. I have a woman from. I'm sorry. I'm going to recuse myself in the next item. I have a Marsh Private Clients Group on my board. They have nothing to do with insurance, but just to avoid the appearance of a conflict, Susan, could you handle this matter, please?
You can see the pollution legal liability insurance for Penn Station on your board books. Are there any questions? May I have a motion to approve? Second. Thank you, Bob. Those in favor? It's approved, and I turn it back to you.
Thank you, and let that approval reflect my recusal. Let's see, agency information items. Phil and Kathy?
Yes.
Update on the PTC progress?
So there are agency information items in the committee book, but just a quick update on positive train control. We continue to work closely with the consortium with Siemens and Bombardier, keeping them aggressively pushing on PTC integration elements. We also, as reported previously, found the positive visit to Pittsburgh facilities accompanied by the board members here, making sure that the consortium understands that we're going to continue to keep the pressure on them. I do appreciate the board's support on this effort. With regards to Long Island Railroad specifically, we have resumed revenue service demonstration on Port Washington branch, and we also anticipate entering extended revenue service demonstration on Hempstead branch by the end of August, which would be ahead of schedule. And then as well, the consortium has identified interoperability challenges in design for Long Island Railroad wayside for Harold interlocking, and they're working through those. And we remain on target for full implementation by 2020 of December. And then recently, along with Managing Director Ronnie Hakem, Long Island Railroad Metro North had a joint meeting in Washington, D.C. with FRA, with Amtrak, and working in collaboration to ensure that the interoperability requirements for PTC are met and that we're working together as a team. So I'm proud to report on those items. Just one other quick thing we have in the book, Penn Station Retail Development in the Environmental Audit and our September timetable track and change and track work programs.
Oh, okay, because As I've already indicated, we are poised to begin ERSD on the Danbury branch within the next couple of weeks. Really, the thing that has to happen for that to happen is for us to complete uploading the software onto our diesel fleet, which is well underway now. We're more than halfway done, so we expect to be done hopefully by the end of this month. We will be in ERSD on the Danbury. After that, we turn our attention to the Hudson line, and we still are on target to have the entire Hudson line in by the end of the year. We are working well, I think, as Phil indicated, with both partners of the SI. They've provided very valuable field support. They're currently deploying a team to help us expedite the software uploads that are necessary for the Danbury branch. As well, they are supporting troubleshooting efforts with respect to some of the hardware issues which this committee is aware of, so they've been providing good technical support and engineering support at our Harmon shop to be able to work through some of the issues that we're having with respect to the reliability of the antenna and CTV box. So on the whole, I would say that they have stepped up their support in a significant way, and I think that's due in no small part to the proactive nature of the board's intervention on this issue. So I'd like to thank the board and the committee for making the trip out to Pittsburgh and also keeping the pressure on, because I do think the level of support we've gotten over the past couple months, I think, is a direct result of that, stepped up attention to this project. On interoperability, as Phil says, we're working well. I think we have a very good path forward on that. We're feeling quite optimistic.
Questions? Neil?
One comment and one question. So given that I would prefer, I guess, to do my day job be about positive train control and not my normal day job, I'd like to spend more time talking about it now. But without being funny, it is the number one issue, I think, facing Metro North. I don't want to speak for Long Island Railroad, but I certainly think for the railroad I ride on, it's the number one issue. And I do want to thank the staff for your support to our desire to go to Pittsburgh, and you took that up and you made it a very productive meeting. I want to thank my colleagues for their support in this topic, and I do want to thank, frankly, Siemens and Bavardier's leadership, who have clearly stepped up and shown that they have to work in parallel and in unison in this work. We will continue to apply carrots and, in fact, probably more sticks than carrots to make this happen on time and properly, because, frankly, I don't care about the FRA requirement. I care that it's done right and it works, because I'm not here to satisfy a federal requirement. I'm here to make the riders as safe as possible. That's my comment. My question is, I will say on pages, and I'll just cite the numbers, 65, 66, 67, and 70, I am surprised by the amount of green that continues to show up in these milestones. There may be some legalistic attention to what is defined as green, which is, quote, no near-term impact to project schedule. But I will tell you, having heard what I heard in Pittsburgh and what we've talked about incessantly, things like the back-to-back interlocking software, things like the timely and reliable repair of all undercar antenna assemblies, green is not what I've heard. And it's certainly, if I were to be color coding it, it would be much darker and much more severe than green. It would be probably red, in my opinion, given what I witnessed and what we've talked about. These pages are not just for our consumption, they're for the public's consumption, and this would present much more of a rosier picture than I think, at least I have come away with at this point. Doesn't mean it's not hopeful, doesn't mean it's not positive, but I would certainly say from the assembly of the antenna that it's green is not what I interpreted from my conversation. So I'd ask you to go back and chat with them about that. Color coding, and I'll add one more comment, which is just a minor note and maybe more tactical. I thought 3.6 was only a Long Island Railroad release, and yet I notice on page 66 it defines it as also a Metro North one, and if so, it is missing from the Gantt chart on page 77. There is no 3.6 on page 77. There's a 3.51. But not a 3.6. So I'll let you guys take that offline to fix the charts if that's in fact an error, but at least I noticed that.
Okay. We can fix the charts. I'll double check and make sure that it's properly depicted. But we have the software now that we need to be able to roll out ERSD throughout the territory. So this is the software that we're using.
Randy?
Yeah, I'm glad that we had all the support of the staff and the presidents of both railroads to go with us to Pittsburgh, and we came away with a better understanding of how it works, and I feel that they're going to step up to the plate and fulfill the commitment that they're contractually required to do so. As I want to echo the concerns of my Vice Chairman, Orrin Getz, I'm concerned about what happens on the other side of the Hudson. And I did speak last week and asked them what's going on. Of course, no answer came. So hopefully we'll get some answers for them soon.
Susan?
I'm pleased to see that we seem to be getting back to our schedule. I think that's important, and I thank everybody on the committee and everybody in management and staff who made a real effort to make that happen. Jano has a master chart, which I think only encompasses the work that's being done throughout the agencies. You have a master chart that includes some stuff with Amtrak. Is the interoperability something that can go on there or not, or is it on there?
I think what you're referring to is the regional outage schedule. So to the extent that the work requires outages or involves outages, it ought to be on that. And I'm happy to check and get back with in tandem with the agency presidents.
I would like you to check, because as we proceed and get more and more back to where we thought we should be, I think you're going to see more outages. So let's be proactive with that, please. Thank you.
Any other questions for Kathy or Phil? Jano, capital construction information items?
The one information item that I would call the committee's attention to is the J.P. Morgan Chase agreement and the related agreement about 415 Madison. Again, for the benefit perhaps of the newer board and committee members, East Side Access, no secret, has been going on for quite some time and is rushing to completion in 2022. Lo and behold, the improvement of Grand Central in tandem with the East Midtown rezoning prompted JPMC to select for their new, much bigger headquarters building, their existing headquarters. So they're demolishing 270 Park and building a new building that is 1 million square foot larger. It's actually 1,400 feet tall. It's going to be a very big building on our skyline. The consequences, they needed to run significant additional structure through the Grand Central train shed down to bedrock. They're entitled to support under the easements. We all know that Park Avenue is in effect a bridge with the railroad underneath it. And so we needed to work out an agreement with them where they could avail themselves of their right to support, but without disrupting the East Side Access project. That was a very long process. We've worked out an agreement which was approved in MOU form back in March of this year and is now a fully negotiated series of agreements which will support our schedule. And in fact, if their work for some reason starts to impact on the schedule for East Side Access, we have the power to insist that they accelerate their work, that they go to double shifts or 24/7 shifts in order to support our schedule and get out of the way so that we can open without work being done. So that's an important milestone. It is encapsulated in a very weighty series of agreements that were really driven by one person who is, Kathy knows well, he used to be the director of Grand Central Terminal. He runs for East Side Access, the real estate, and many of the other initiatives, and that's Randy Fleischer. I just want to thank him. This was extraordinarily difficult series of agreements to negotiate with a major financial institution and with an adjacent property owner, so that in tandem with this, we will have finally certainty about the delivery of our 48th Street entrance for East Side Access. So that's what's before it's actually before the Finance Committee, but I mention it as information to this committee as well.
Thank you, Jano. I have a question since you raised East Side Access. I think it was last week, if not the week before, the new IG for the MTA issued a report on the delays with the 2nd Avenue subway regarding escalators being out of service more than they're in service. And I was wondering if the company that did the escalators for the 2nd Avenue subway is the same company that's doing the escalators for the East Side Access project, and if so, what steps are we taking to make sure that the East Side Access escalator do not have the operation issues that the 2nd Avenue subway escalators have?
It is the same company, and so we're clear, there are really only 2 escalator companies right now that are bidding MTA work. That's something we should take an effort to change so there's more competition. There are at least 3 world-class elevator and escalator companies who don't bid our work. But Schindler is the contractor for the escalators. The escalators are all installed at East Side Access. I think that we've done a reasonably good job of managing some of the exposures that create problems with escalator installation, which is what is the environment for that installation? Is it an environment that you can protect against, for example, the steel dust and other kinds of conditions starting to affect the caliber of the installation? And we have so far maintained schedule, but the real issue, Chairman, is in the maintenance, and we have an option for maintenance. It's generally a good idea to use the same company that manufactured and installed the escalator to maintain it, so you avoid the finger pointing post facto. But before we award that, act on that option for maintenance, we're going to want very clear understandings about frequency and type of preventative maintenance, response times, things that will make sure we're not satisfactory to Transit Authority in the 2nd Avenue subway, especially 72nd Street. We'll be making sure to pre-negotiate some of those issues into a maintenance agreement if we're able to arrive at it.
Great, thank you, Jano. I've been down to the East Side Access Tunnel 2 or 3 times, and I've seen those escalators, and I like to consider myself as in pretty good shape. I work out 3 days a week, but I could not fathom walking up those escalators. They're pretty much the tallest escalators I've ever seen. So I think we need to stay on top of that, and appreciate your comments. Any other questions for Jano? Okay, we're going to go into procurements.
Actually, Commissioner, we skipped over the Metro North information items. We have 4. If I could just review them briefly.
I'm usually good for 1 or 2 mistakes a meeting, so there's my first one. So sorry, Kathy, go for it.
I'll be super fast.
No, take your time.
The GCT Retail Development Report, the annual report's in the agenda, and Leah Bassnight is here if there are any questions. Number 2, like Long Island, is the environmental audit, the annual environmental audit. 3rd is our track program quarterly update, and Glenn is here if you have any questions on that. And number 4, this is something that would be being brought to finance. It's the acquisition of vacant land in support of our Wayside Energy Storage System project. It's in Newcastle on the Harlem line. Acquisition of the property will facilitate the construction and operation of the Wayside Energy Storage System, which will use the latest battery technology for improving power delivery to our trains. So those are our 4 information items.
Any questions for Kathy? Neil?
Thank you, sir. The last item is an area of question for me. We usually list who the buyer or the seller is in this case. I was noted that there's an absence of discussing who is selling us this property, and for the purposes of conflict avoidance, I'd like to know who it is.
Let me find out. I'll find out, Neil.
Okay, yeah.
We're not voting today, so I'll find out before. I'll find out before we go to finance.
Good. Neil, it's a good question. It sort of repeats a common theme I've raised at the last 2 board meetings. Every time we're doing a procurement or a lease, whatever, a purchase, let's make sure we list the companies on the agenda and in the books, not just in the back under procurements. To make sure that we could avoid conflicts or appearances of conflicts.
Okay. Well, sorry. Summit Greenfield is the name of the company. We can find out who the principals are. Yeah, you can put. Yeah, we can find out who the principals are, Neil. Yeah, I mean the name isn't helpful. You want to know who the principals are. We'll find out. Yeah, we'll find out who the principals are. It's not for approval here, but we'll find out who the principals are before the board meeting.
Thank you, Kathy. Now we'll go to procurements, Long Island Railroad.
Good morning.
Dennis?
Good morning. There is 1 item in this month's procurement package in the competitive section. There are no items in the non-competitive section and no items in the ratification section. The item in the competitive section is a request for MTA Board approval to adopt a resolution declaring that competitive bidding is impractical or inappropriate, and that it is therefore in the public best interest to use the competitive request for proposal procurement method pursuant to Section 1265A of the Public Authorities Law, to award a contract for the design, manufacture, test, and delivery of train simulator systems for each of LIRR's M7, M9, dual-mode locomotive, and C3 fleets. These 3 simulators will support increased training requirements for train crews required in advance of operating equipment within Eastside Access Territory to Grand Central Terminal, for positive train control, and new equipment and familiarization for our new M9s. These simulators will assist in the training of locomotive and train engineers by exposing them to simulated operating scenarios, emergency situations, equipment failures, as well as the physical characteristics encountered within Long Island Railroad's operating territory. This item is submitted for your consideration and vote.
Thank you. We'll take a motion by David, seconded by Robert. Any comments, questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item, I'm going to ask Susan to handle the procurement item. Again, it's a Long Island-based company. I don't believe they're a member of the LIA, but just in case they are, I'll recuse myself. Yes. No. We're happy that Metro North is using Long Island companies,
Yes.
by the way.
Well, they've done a very good job for us, too. This procurement is a modification to the Dayton T. Brown account. These individuals have been helping us with our PTC and helping us get to our schedule. May I have a motion? Second. Thank you. Discussion. All in favor? Any opposed? Passed.
Thank you, Susan, and let the approval note my recusal. Agency reports on operations.
I'm sorry, hate to do this to you again. We have one more Metro North procurement that needs to be approved.
Is this the Port Imperial Ferry?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Kathy, that's twice. I said I was good. I said I was good for 2 mistakes. That means I'm done 2. I'm not going to make any more.
Okay,
I promise.
I'm sorry about
that. Please brief us on this.
Okay, Anthony?
Okay, so the second Metro North procurement is a modification to a competitively led contract with Port Imperial Ferry Corporation doing business as New York Waterways for ongoing provision of ferry service at 2 Metro North Station locations. The modification is for additional funding to exercise the first 2-year renewal option in the contract through December 2020. Funding is provided through New York State Department of Transportation and MTA grants using state and federal funds. May I please have a vote and approval?
Motion by Susan, second by Rhonda. Any comments on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries. I see there are no capital construction procurements. Is that correct, Jana? Yes. Good. Now we'll get to the agency reports on operations, handed over to Long Island Railroad first.
Good morning. The operating report can be found on starting on page 150 in your book. For the month of June, the OTP was 91.4% for the overall. The AM peak was at 91.2. The PM was at 89.9, and the year-to-date is, as of the end of June, is 93.5%, which is a 3% increase compared to the same period last year. Throughout the month, less than 5% of all scheduled trains arrive between 6 and 10 minutes late at their final terminal. Our constant compliance for the month was 98.8% for our constant requirements, and our fleet MDBF was 200,000. It's a 1-month lag, 200,248 miles against an overall goal of 185,000. And overall, just about every category we are down year to date, in just about every category right across the board. And if there are any questions, I'll take them at this time.
And if I could just add, in the book on the page 176 is the Long Island Railroad Finance Report, and just to report through the end of June, the Long Island Railroad has generated $619 million in revenue and spent $975 million, resulting in a net operating loss of $356 million. And due to higher than expected revenues and lower than expected expenditures, this net operating loss through June is lower than what was assumed in the adopted budget. That concludes our agency reports.
Kathy?
Okay. Our reports are also in the book, including the financial report. Based on our results through the end of June, Metro North generated $511 million in revenue and spent $766 million, which results in a net operating loss of $255 million, Lower than expected revenues, mainly reimbursable project receipts, are more than offset by lower than expected expenditures, and the net operating loss through June is lower than what was assumed in the adopted budget. The operating report is in the book. If you would like John to go through the highlights as Rod did, we're happy to do that. Otherwise, it's in the book. Sure, John, you just want to do?
Certainly. June service delivery operated above goal at 94.4% with 92.7% in the peak. Year-to-date, we're operating above goal at 95.2 with 94.6 in the peak. All three lines are operating in a very reliable manner. Almost all of our service periods are operating above goal. In June, 3.1% of trains arrived within 10 minutes. Consus compliance, we're doing extremely well, I think, better than we thought, at 99.7% with 99.3 in the peaks. As Kathy mentioned in the opening segments, west of Hudson service, the Pascack Valley is doing better than the Port Jervis. On the Port Jervis, we do have a lot of infrastructure work, signal work, program busing that's in play there. During the month of June, we did have a high number of cancellations west of Hudson. We did speak with New Jersey Transit executives just the other day. They're still being challenged with engineer availability and some issues with their engineers. Fleet of availability was excellent in the month of June, and MDBF is operating above goal for the month of May at 563,000. With year-to-date at 239,000. So overall, I think we're doing fairly reliably, and hopefully things will stay that way. We were challenged this past couple of days with the high heat conditions. Luckily, we had no customers in distress or stranded trains. I'd like to acknowledge our power department for going above and beyond over the last 4 days, addressing some issues on the New Haven catenary side. And only through their rapid response were we able to avoid any more significant service disruptions. Thank you.
Neil?
A brief remark. I do appreciate what's happened in the last year. If you look at your chart June to June, you'll see a lot of 80s. And while it's only 7 or 8 percentage points, as a daily rider, you can feel 7 or 8 percentage points. You can feel the constant recriminations and complaining of your neighbors in the train. And it's not there right now, and it's a good thing, and I thank you for that. I do want to keep you mindful on the AM peak and the Hudson line, not just because I ride it, but because that is the lowest number around there, and you continue to be vigilant. And certainly the average delay per train is actually up 20% between June to June this year, from 11.9 to 14.2. But I think this is a really positive trend, and I appreciate what you're doing, Kathy.
Thanks, Nellie. I appreciate that. You know that I'm a Hudson Line rider, too. The one thing that I would say about the Hudson Line is that we really suffered with that mudslide in the month of June. That really, really affected, the performances for the particular month of June. But thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Great. That concludes our agenda. Is there any other business or matter that any committee member wants to raise? Hearing none. If there's any delays with this committee schedule today, let the record reflect it was not the fault of the Metro North and Long Island Railroad Committee. And motion to adjourn by Robert, seconded by Susan. All in favor? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.